650, even in the official market. Of course, this will also transfer, into the market system. So, and the president said what he's going to insist on will be production of food, production of pharmaceutical products, medications, and of course, exportation of agricultural products. Now, that's opening up the fiscal space. Having more export, that means you earn more dollar. And you earn more dollar, it means that it will impact the price of foreign exchange in-house. You are exporting food to earn more dollars. You are producing more food. It will also impact the price of food. And don't also forget that food inflation has been the major contributor, to the escalation of inflation figures in Nigeria over the past so many years. So once those aspects can be addressed, I think to a large extent it could. If, for instance, food inflation at 39.8 or 39.9 as it is now, if it could be driven, to under 20, it will have a magical effect on inflation figures, as it were.
Okay, now this issue has been, I know it's been overflogged, but the president again mentioned it, talking about the fuel subsidy removal. He made a statement. He said, if we, let me rephrase, not exactly the way he said it though, but he talked about the fuel subsidy removal as being very, very necessary. Very, very necessary for us not to go bankrupt. And also, he said that we were heading for slippery slopes.
Yeah.
and of course, which of course will lead us to financial disaster. Talking about preparing the future for the children. Now, break it down, because quite a lot of people don't understand when he, said these things about fuel subsidy removal. How necessary is it, or was it, to remove the fuel subsidy?
Let's even look at the analogy itself. If you walk a slippery slope, it means you will crash. You will slip and crash. Already we were bankrupt. We were going bankrupt because of the fuel subsidy. We were no longer financing national existence with our own money. Financing fuel subsidy with organically generated revenue. We were borrowing. And that's the worst form of economic engagement. If you had to borrow to finance consumption, you have eroded any form of rationality around the economy of that particular transaction. And we were not just borrowing in tens or hundreds or thousands. We're borrowing in billions, in dollar. So much that a particular year, 2022, we funded fuel subsidy or fuel supply generally by more than $9.7 billion. It does not make sense. What form of productive activities, are we earning or facilitating by such? What have we gained over the years in real terms? Either at the level of infrastructural growth, at the level of GDP growth, even at the level of inflationary management, in the way we have been borrowing and spending the spending to sustain subsidy. So the option was, do we continue? If the president was a popularity seeker, he would continue. And sincerely, that's one reason why most other presidents had tried to manage, fuel subsidy. So it had been, let us remove in phases, and we have been removing since 1975, effectively, in phases. But there are other dynamics, economic dynamics, that would not let that removal, those phase removal, reflect in truth. Because you have the foreign exchange, you have issues with your supply system, you have issues with the product itself, the crude oil itself, your production and all that. You have issues with international price of the product. So the only way you can you can achieve absolute deregulation of that sector is for government to remove its hand. And the president has said, and it's showing now, once government removes its hands, private investors can come in because there's no regulation. Say, if you use your money to buy crude oil and take it somewhere, or use your money to buy fuel, PMS, outside this country, you brought it here, government gives you promise, that they will refund you. Over time, they are not refunding you. Your fund is stuck somewhere. You have issues with the value of that fund over time. That's why most private marketers removed their hands, and now it became NNPC matter. So NNPC was now using sovereign fund, money collected on behalf of Nigerians through the sales of crude oil, to sustain subsidy. So it was becoming a vicious circle for us. So how do you break out of this? I think it's the president that decided to sacrifice popularity, to sacrifice politics for reality, that's able to take this decision. And he also mentioned the fact that now it does not need, because of the kind of money revenue being generated in Nigeria, it does not need to approach NNPC to fulfill any national or sovereign obligation again.
Okay, we'll continue on that. We'll talk about the tax reform bill. But before we continue, we'll take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
Of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow, under digital economy, for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different? We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that our questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today. We're looking at some key takeaways from the presidential media chat. Now, in the studio, I have with me a financial analyst, which is Nei Akinshijun. Now, you of course you talked so much about the fuel subsidy removal and how important it was for us to remove the fuel subsidy. It's a good thing you try to analyze and explain why that should happen. Now we have another one at hand, which is the tax reform bills that before the National Assembly, and the president has said, look, I'm not going back on this. Even though some quarters have said, okay, we are really not we don't really understand, or we're not so comfortable with this bill. So talk to us. Can you break it down for us? What are the merits of these bills, or the tax reform?
Generally speaking, the totality of the tax reforms is well-intentioned. And if it's passed into law and consensuously implemented, it will facilitate a paradigm shift in the Nigerian economic states. I say this with all consciousness, having gone through those bills. Those bills alone will change the fiscal environment, the Nigerian fiscal environment. And of course, where there have been where there have been adulation, where there have been commendation for progressive taxing system, this bill that may become law even drives progressive taxing system to a different level. If you read the bill, you would not even, you would see that it's not even about revenue collection. It is more about citizens' empowerment. about enterprise development and enhancing citizens' purchasing power. Yes, there's revenue aspect of it. The revenue aspect of it is very controlled, very well targeted. The president once said that he will not be targeting poor people to pay taxes. And these are reflected, these commitments are reflected in the bill. So much that if you are a minimum wage earner, you are exempted from paying personal income tax. Your needs, your food, your medications, your education, your transportation are exempted from value-added tax. So if you do what I call a flash calculation, you're on 70,000 naira, or between 70,000 and 80,000 naira per month across 12 months. That will come to about between 840,000 and 1 million. Normally, in the schedule of taxing, personal income tax, as we have now, that should attract 19% on your salary. But government is now saying, and that's on 840,000, that came to about 159,000, that 19%. So government is saying, we are exempting you from that payment. To my basic mind, that's a rebate. That's a give back. So rather than government take that 159,000 from you as your personal income tax at that level, the government is forgiving you, is giving you back. Now what that does is it enhances your capacity to make demands. When you make demands as a collective, so you can imagine that across 10, 15 million people, taking that range, it boosts demand. When it boosts demands, it boosts production. When it boosts production, it increases capacity or even the need for companies, manufacturing companies, to increase their production to satisfy new demand threshold. As they do that, it also means that new jobs will have to be created by those manufacturing entities. So you now have a positive circle of production, what we call clear money, circular movement of money. And then, if you look at the corporate Nigerians too, from anybody that has a turnover, any entity, any company that has a turnover of less than 50 million naira per annum is exempted from company income tax. You have about 43 to 44 million micro, cottage, micro, and small scale companies in that category. So what that means is that the the pharmacy, the neighborhood pharmacy, the neighborhood chemist, the neighborhood nursery school, the neighborhood hospitals are all exempted from paying tax.
So who now pays the tax?
Good. The taxes are now targeted at the upper echelon of the society. If you earn 50 million naira and above in a year, you are taxed 25%. So now there's appropriate targeting. You have more money, you give back to the society. You are rich, you pay more, and enhance the capacity of the poor to grow too. So it's not, but what we have experienced till now is that you have more people at the base of the pyramid paying taxes. Because it is easier, for instance, to collect payees, pay as you earn. Because every month there is a mechanism that automatically deducts that tax. But those people are actually at the base of the pyramid. So and then to start tracking the rich one had become near impossible. But with the conditions and the provisions in the Constitution, in the bills now, it's easier because there is there's a link between your name, your bank account, and other activities that the tax authorities can use, to estimate your possible income through your expenditure.
Okay, having railed out the merits, are there possible demerits?
Well, I am except for the VAT issue. And that's where you have a lot of controversy and all that. Is it equity? Is it population? Is it derivative and and all that? But even at that, I still believe if there is an understanding of the concept itself amongst the warring group, as it were, I think it can be resolved. That is the only place there are issues, and there is and where you have this problem is that continuous mentality of revenue earning, which this bill don't represent. Okay. The bills represent fair, progressive philosophy in a fiscal system. But what we have had before is how can we increase internally generated revenue? And in doing that, you are ready to tax anybody within the environment. Okay. And if the governors are annoyed now, it may have to do with their possible reduction in possible income generated from VAT if the derivative is applied.
Okay, now before we go, just in 30 seconds. Now the president also mentioned that the issue of borrowing, saying it's not criminal to, of course, to borrow. Now, how do you think the president planned, the plan to borrow from international financial institutions will impact Nigeria's economy and infrastructural development? And also, to try to tell us what your expectations are, in terms of, accountability and transparency, in terms of, managing borrowed funds.
So give it to the president. Is a financial manager. Is a professional financial manager. So you understand the nuances, of finance. And when I heard him say, we have been mismatching short-term fund to fund long-term projects. It's a mismatch. There's no way it could work. You have a fund that is supposed to last you for maximum 6 months with possible interest, if you are not paying back. And you are using it to fund projects that will be delivered over a 5 years, 6 years period. There's a mismatch. So even securing that fund already shows incapacitation. So you must look at your borrowing plan to match your your project delivery, and it should align.
Thank you very much. I really wish we had more time so that we'll talk more, because there's quite a lot to talk about. However, I will very thank you to our guest, Aniya Kinshiju, is investment and financial analyst. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for being part of the program. I'm Eucharia Clinton. Do have a wonderful night.